Is it possible to start over and get a job in data analytics in your 30s? Today we're going to be covering that topic and getting deep into it. A lot of people want to reinvent themselves, get into a different industry, a different job function later in life. And the question is that possible? Is it easy? And how do we do that? By the end of this video, we're going to be covering all three of these things from my personal experience. I actually work in data science. I'm a digital marketing data analyst, and I have been for the last 3 years. Before that, I worked 5 years at a digital marketing performance agency where we did SEO, pay-per-click, and all those things related to, basically returning an investment from your resources spent on digital marketing. And currently I'm kind of like a subset of a data analyst, one that's kind of focused more on the marketing tools and marketing skills related rather than being too program heavy like a typical data analyst. So you don't need as much programming knowledge, though you still need some to get a role like mine. Okay, so let's get right into it. Is this possible in your 30s? Well, I'm currently in my early 30s, if you couldn't tell based off how long I've been working. And while I haven't reinvented myself completely and transitioned into a new field, I would say that this is something that is doable, and I probably could have done it in less years. So just to give a recap on my journey in terms of answering this question, did I need to spend 5 years at my previous performance marketing agency? No, I think it was a great stepping stone and a great way to get my foot in the door and learn all the things I needed to know about digital marketing. But typically my coworkers who were there, they would move on about after 1 or 2 years, maybe 3 if they really wanted to stay. There were some standouts that stayed as long as I did, but generally speaking, they were moving in and out pretty quickly. And so I think the key was to really get my foot into the door here, because it really opens, I guess, the world up. Once you have that entry level job and that experience, and you're trained in all the skills necessary to, become effective as a digital marketer, then you can hop and transition and then ladder up into similar roles where now you also have a easier time of getting into, like my current data analyst role. So if I could travel back in time and my goal was to get to where I am now in a fraction of that time, I would have told myself, hey, you don't need to spend 5 years. Back then I didn't know any better, and I felt like I thought it would have been better to kind of zig while everyone else zagged, and simply stayed at the company for a long period of time and been rewarded for my loyalty there. But what I learned is that it's not exactly how the world works. These companies may not necessarily recognize or reward you for your loyalty. You may just get the standard 5% salary pay increases every year to keep up with inflation. And on top of that, it's just unfortunately how a lot of companies value their employees. They will give massive increases for someone who they're trying to steal away from another company, or who is new and moves in from another company. But then if you're loyal, typically, unless you're doing an extremely stellar job, they're just going to give you very minimum raises or increases. And for that reason, a lot of people jump. And it's just an unfortunate part of the industry, but that's what they did. And so they jumped around a lot, and that's how they got an increase. Obviously, the caveat with that is if you're jumping way too often, people are going to see that on your resume, and then they may not hire you. So the one thing I can speak to is, if I ever wanted to move, I could point to my 5 years of loyalty. That being said, if you're trying to get a new start, don't worry, you don't have to spend 8 years like I did. I would say, like, as mentioned, 1 to 3 years is good. And you can usually tell, you can gauge it based on if you feel like you are leveling up, learning, improving, continuously getting trained on new skills. That would be benefit. Or have you hit your plateau where you're basically doing the same things every week, every month, and then you're not learning something. It's okay if you don't learn everything every day, but if you're not learning on a monthly basis, and leveling up new skill sets or experiences in tools that you can put on your resume or your portfolio that you can speak to, that would be of value. Maybe it's time to move. But I would say that is huge. If you can get into that, it is a huge bonus. And yes, there are tons of people. I wouldn't say it's easy because it is competitive, but there are tons of people who get their foot in the door in these marketing agencies, even as internship roles, where they're paid less, but they're still paid to learn all these skills and actually work with real clients and help them. Many of them are not coming from a digital marketing background. Some are, and they have a marketing degree in university, but frankly, how much is that degree really going to be helpful? There's plenty of other people who learned a lot more self-taught through all the digital marketing courses and YouTube videos and tutorials online, and then they built their own portfolio where they were able to, get more real-world results, maybe for their own YouTube channel or their own website or local businesses that they work for free. But that's really the secret to get your foot in the door, and why a lot of these young, ambitious people were able to stand out. And lo and behold, they got their foot in the door at that agency, they built experience, and then they leveled up from there. So I do think it certainly is possible. I do think you can do it in less time. And that's how you can kind of do it in a condensed period of time. Now, is it easy? I already hinted to this. I'm not going to lie to you and say it is easy. Some people will lie and say it's easy, or maybe they'll exaggerate a bit because they want a viral video or something like that. But it's good to be honest and actually give you a real scope of the land. So at least in terms of my role, which is a subset of a data analyst, I would say it's easier than a data analyst role. But it wouldn't be easy, and I wouldn't say you can do it without learning certain hard skills. So I think that's something I've seen, at least in my job, I've seen people get hired for this position, join my team, and they have a portion of the skills necessary. And what we're hoping, just because of the lack of supply of this unique skill set, is that they'll kind of flesh out and learn those other skills on the job. And some of those skills may be Google Tag Manager, deeply Google Analytics 4, Looker Studio, BigQuery. They need to know a little bit, at least on an intermediate level, of SQL. Python would be nice, but it's not a need to have. SQL is really the key thing. And so here's the thing. Some of them, they don't necessarily learn those skills, and they don't last long. So you really need to actually learn these things and really get ahead. So is there too much competition? Well, it depends on the subset of the role you're going on. As you can see, for some roles, there is a lack of supply of really good talent who knows all these things. And so how do you get around this? Well, some people just are too lazy, or it's too complicated for them to learn these things, or their mind just doesn't work in a way where they can learn a programming language. Well, then maybe this is not a fit for you. But there are plenty of people where they can do this. And right now it's predominantly male computer scientist people, but does it have to be? Absolutely not. I would say there's someone on my team who is a female and just killing it at her job, absolutely incredibly good at her job. And so it is possible. You just need to be able to have that enthusiasm, have a certain level of intelligence, or I guess certain type of brain where you can learn a lot of technical things. Some of it is programming, but it's not all programming. BigQuery as well as Google Tag Manager aren't necessarily programming, but they are somewhat technical skills that you need to be able to pick up. And a lot of these tools you can learn for free online. I think the best way of learning them is hands-on experience with real clients or real examples, because if you live in theory land, I mean, you're only going to get half the experience. You're going to you'll be thrown problems in real life that you won't understand until you're actually setting up like, let's say, tracking for a website and tracking all the button clicks on a 5-step form experience, for example. So To be able to actually do that, you either need to build that yourself on your own website or set it up for clients. And a great way of doing that is doing it for free, working for free for local businesses that you pitch. But it certainly does require some work. Okay, and then the last section of this video is how do you do it? Now, I've kind of already given away the keys to the castle throughout this video, but just to kind of flesh that out a bit more, to get this type of thing, you need to get some real world experience, you need to get real experience, and you need to be able to show and prove that on a portfolio or resume, and then you actually have to demonstrate you really know what you're doing. So all those first three things are basically accumulating the proof in a irrefutable way that you can do it. As mentioned, there's a lot of candidates who have half the skills, half the qualifications, or a portion of them, and they are trying to get hired. And then they're embellishing themselves and their resume, and they're putting their best foot forward in a way, but really you need to have the sauce. You need to be able to actually do this stuff, or at least have the potential of learning them on the job. There is some leeway at a lot of these companies because they can't get someone who is 100% qualified and a superstar. They are willing to settle with someone who has a portion of these skills, whether it's 75% or 65%, and we're willing to train them on the job, in my experience. If you can have a bunch of these skill sets coming in, not only will you stand out, and then if you can prove them, you're going to stand out even more, because there's a lot of people, saying they can do something, but then they can't do it. So really having those skill sets of, having knowing Google Tag Manager in and out, knowing Google Analytics 4 in and out, and then knowing how to, map out problems in BigQuery and then solve them through SQL queries. Those are things that are not easily learnable, and that's why people want experience. So how do you get all this experience? It may seem like a chicken or egg thing. You're starting over in your 30s. How do you get that? Well, once again, as I mentioned, you can do free work, you can do freelancing work, you can pitch local businesses, you can start your own website and all that stuff, but that'll be kind of all limited in a way because you're only getting, limited functionality on your website. Maybe you don't have a 5-step form that you can submit. Build it. You can build it with HubSpot or something like that. You can set it up. You can use these free tutorials, but then you need to get real world experience. Don't just rely on your own free self-taught stuff. And then really get that experience. Be open to the idea that you're not going to get it on your first job. Be open to the idea that maybe you need a stepping stone job first. It could be a year, maybe 2 years at a digital marketing job, where you learn things on the job as an entry level. And with that patience, I think it will pay off in the long run because, in the grand scheme of things, 1 or 2 or 3 years to get where you want to go is not that much of a deal in the long run, especially when you have probably still decades left in your working life that you can, dedicate to something like this. So certainly do not feel discouraged if you're restarting in your 30s. I don't think that all the experience that you have been taught, especially the soft skills, are a waste. You could probably translate a lot of it to the job because we're still interacting with people. We're still interacting with clients if you're agency side. So best of luck. Join my free email newsletter if you want free tips like this in the future. And I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.